Okay, if you're a hairstylist, I want to know the craziest thing that's ever happened to you in the salon before.
Yeah, the craziest thing that ever happened to me was I saw Susie on here, and she didn't like scrub up Histo. It's fucking nuts. It reminds me of this one time that I had a client who came in, and she was new in town, and I did her hair a couple times, and then I said, okay, you know, like you said you want to do extensions, let's do extensions. She's like, okay, let's do extensions. And so she wanted to use Vagaro Pay Later, which is kind of like Afterpay, but like for hairstylists and beauty service providers. And it's not something that you have to offer, but like it's something that you can. And I know that extensions are expensive, so I said I was going to offer this. And then I offered it to her, and so I usually take 50% up front and then 50% at the time of your service. And because she wanted a really excessive amount of hair extensions, and she also wanted like a few rows of them, it was going to be a little bit more than normal. So her deposit was like $1,100, and she paid it using Pay Later. And then she texted me and was like, hey, can we move my appointment because I want to get it done before this day. I have like an event or something going on, blah blah blah. And then she moved her appointment, so the only day that I had available was a Sunday, but I didn't mind coming in because I didn't have anything going on, and I was trying to provide good customer service, blah blah. Anyway, she comes in, we have a great time, we have Kiki, we make TikToks, we take before and after photos, all this stuff, and then it comes time to pay, and it's like monsooning rain, like pouring rain, and then it comes time to pay, and she's like, hey, like the internet in your salon isn't working, which isn't super uncommon, so you're like trying to be like sympathetic, but you also like kind of want her to tip you because you just came in on your day off for her, and you also just like a really big service, and you're like really hoping that she'll tip you because you're a hairstylist and we like getting tipped, and I still take tips. And I was like, oh yeah, like and just in general trying to be a decent human being, I was like, oh okay, like I have a hot spot, blah blah. And then she's like kind of starting to make you feel uncomfortable at this point, and she's like, I need to go like step outside and like see if I can get better service. And I'm like, well, it's pouring down rain, it's just you and me here, so like I mean if you want to, but I just did your hair. And she was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to the end of the hallway. So she goes to the end of the hallway for like 10 minutes, and while she's down there, you try and like take a photo out your window, but it's monsooning rain, so you can't take a picture of her license plate. And you're like, oh, I got such a weird feeling about this, like I feel super uncomfortable, she's making me feel really uncomfortable. And then she goes and comes back, and she says that yeah, it's like not working, she tried to call them, but it's Sunday, they're closed, like there's nothing you do about it. And I'm like, okay, those are all like super reasonable things. She also, she signed a contract, and she, wasn't unhappy with her service. She was like ranting and raving. We made cute little before and after videos. The tiny mic interviews that I do, I did one of those with her, and she was saying like how amazing it was, how she's had other extensions in before, and she like hated them, and like this is like the only ones that she feels super confident in, and it was like a really beautiful thing. So in good faith, you're like, okay, well, I have your card on file, so I need you to pay me tonight though, like when you get internet. And she was like, okay. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so you go and you leave and you go to the movies, and while you're at the movies, you look at John and you say, hey, I don't know, like I get a weird feeling about this. So you're at dinner later and you text her, and she doesn't text you back. And then she texts you back like a couple hours later when it's like kind of an appropriate time. It's like maybe like 11 or 12, and she's like, hey girl, they were closed today, some sort of something going on, I don't know, I'll let you know tomorrow. And then you don't hear from her. And then she texts you like later back in the day tomorrow, and she's like, hey, just wanted to give you an update, like there was a glitch in their system. And I'm like, okay, cool, like shit happens, I get it, still believing her. And then it's Tuesday at this point, and you're like, oh man, I really need to close out my books from last week, like I need to close them out. And you text her and you're like, hey dude, like any update, like I really need you to pay that. And she's like, hey, like I was also thinking maybe you could send me a PayPal request because they apparently have Pay in 4 that way, and I'll just pay you that way. And I was like, yeah, but like again, the whole thing, I'm like, this sounds so stupid now, and I sound so stupid, but I was like, oh man, like she can't add tip on there. So I was like, well, here's my PayPal, so thinking like she'll just send me the amount. And she goes, well, you have to send a request as like a business. And I'm like, okay. So I just was like, F it, at this point I just want to get paid. And she sends you a confirmation text saying that she got it, but she didn't pay it. And then you're like, okay, so can you just pay it? And she's like, well, I want to wait to hear back from Vagaro. And I'm like, well, like I'll delete the invoice from Vagaro, like I need you to pay me, like so I can close it out, like no big deal, like I'll make sure that they know to cancel the ticket or whatever. And she's like, no, I really want to hear back from them. And I'm like, okay, at this point, I'm really confused. So I call Vagaro myself, and they're like, there's no system there, there's nothing going on. And they then tell you that she was denied for the Afterpay because she didn't make payments on her first couple of Afterpays for the deposit, which was 6 weeks ago, and she missed her payments, so that she was denied. And so you're like, okay, so you like don't want to embarrass her or make her feel awkward or humiliate her, so you text her back and you're like, hey, you know, I just got off the phone with Vagaro. They told me that there wasn't like sort of some system glitch. I can send the invoice to you again, thinking that maybe she like made it right. And I'm like, do you happen to have any Afterpays or pay laters open with Vagaro? And she's like, yeah, I have the original one. It's not paid off yet. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't think that you can open another one until you pay that one off. Like, trying to be nice. And she's like, well, I was approved for $5,000. And I'm like, okay, well, then you should have no problem paying it, but you didn't pay me. And then she just kind of kept going back and forth. And then I finally was like, okay, I understand your situation. I'm trying to be sympathetic, but like, you also are a business owner. Like, I'm sure you can understand that I really need to close out my books. Can you please just pay me? You can either pay me through the PayPal link. You can come into the salon and pay me, or you can pay with the link that I sent you. You can enter in as many credit cards as you need. I can split the payment however you want. But you did agree to pay this amount, and you knew how much it was from the beginning because you signed a DocuSign even before you paid your deposit saying that it was going to be $2,200, and you still owe me $1,100 after you paid the first one. And, you know, I was like, I need it by 4 p.m. today, or I'm going to have to charge your card on file. And I think that's where I messed up, because then her only response was, wow. So then you go and charge her card on file, and it's deleted because she called Vagaro and told them that some sort of crazy story. I don't really know because I don't have access to that. And they deleted her card on her file, so I don't have it, so I can't charge her. And then you call the cops, and the cops are like, this isn't our problem. Like, this is criminal versus civil. Like, we're not doing anything about it. And then you're like, well, it's retail items because extensions are physical retail items. And they were like, okay, well, what's her information? And they call her, and then she goes down there and says that there was an issue with my payment thing because she wasn't approved, but she told them that she was going to pay me, and she had planned on paying me. She just hasn't yet. And then the cops call you back and tell you that she said she's going to pay you, so there's nothing that they can do about it. And it's been months now, and then you were going to let it go because it's going to cost you too much money to take her to small claims court, because you have to file for that and all that. And even if you do win, she's not going to go to jail, and she's not going to get serviced or like served with anything time wise. And you can't make a dry horse bleed. You're just like, okay, well, if she don't have the money, she don't have the money. And like, she owns her own business, so it's not like they can garnish her wages. You're really probably not going to see that money back, and then you're going to be out more money and more time and more stress. It's just not worth it. So you're going to let it go, and then you get a letter in the mail, and it's from the Afterpay pay later people, and they're now saying that you owe them the remaining amount from her original plan that she didn't pay. So she made 2 payments on it, so you only owe like $500 something, almost $600, and also like a fee for being late, and you have to pay it as the merchant, and they're going to debit your account. And then you call Vagaro, and you're like, what the heck is this? And you call them, and you're like, what the heck is this? And both of them tell you that you have to call the other one after you just did that, and you said, no, like, I need you to fix this for me. And it's been 3.5 weeks, and they still haven't fixed it. And every single day, this credit card company tries to debit your account, which they have the wrong account information. And then your bank calls you and says, hey, like, did you know that your old account has been charged? Like, do you want us to flag this? And then you realize that Vagaro gave them your personal bank account information for your business, but you had just moved banks, so you didn't know. And you now owe that previous bank almost $700, because every day that they tried to charge you for that fee, it was $30 for a late fee. I thought I closed the account. I didn't know. So now you owe your bank $700. She owes you $1,100, and she also owes that bank almost $585, just shy of $600, and it's all falling on your shoulders. And Vagaro's not doing anything about it. They just keep saying that they're working on it, and there's nothing that they can do, and that they can't compensate you for those fees. Yeah, but you know, there's also store-bought pesto girl on here, and that's just crazy. That's just nuts. Happy Thanksgiving.